Our special guest on Florida Newsmakers this week is the Democratic Party of Florida's new chair, Allison Tant. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Two new polls that are out statewide show that if the election were held today, Governor Rick Scott might be beat fairly handily by either former Governor Charlie Crist, now a Democrat, or former Democratic nominee for governor, Alex Sink. What's the reaction to those polls?
Rick Scott is vulnerable, he is beatable, and we intend to beat him.
Well, I've learned a long time ago that it's a bad thing to ever underestimate the power of an incumbent who's holding the job now and has the ability to raise a lot of money, and there's only one governor when it's an incumbent. So your reaction to the difficulty in beating an incumbent?
We don't take anything for granted, but we are going to be utilizing the same field team effort, and we are going to be aggressively raising funds to defeat this governor, and we are going to be successful in that endeavor.
And can you be competitive with the ability that the governor has shown for raising money? He's already got a pretty good war chest.
Oh yes, we will be, and we are already raising money.
So Alex Sink, your former standard bearer for the last gubernatorial election, and Charlie Crist, who is not an announced candidate, and former state senator Nan Rich, the only announced Democratic candidate, who's the strength in that field?
They are all going to be engaged in a very robust primary process. I am certain that they will all make very strong cases for themselves, and whomever emerges from the primary process as our nominee is going to be very strongly supported by the party.
Well, more than a week ago, the state capitol was all abuzz, with a buzz that now has gone statewide with the resignation of Lieutenant Governor Jennifer Carroll in a apparently still widening scandal about internet cafes. The Democratic Party issued kind of a scathing statement. Some people thought it was kind of mean-spirited in the moments after it happened. Was that appropriate?
Of course it was appropriate. Rick Scott made as his first decision as the executive of our state a bad decision in his selection, and he continues to make bad decisions. You have to judge an executive by the decisions that they make. He's been wildly unpopular. He's made wildly unpopular decisions. He's vulnerable both with Democrats and Republicans because of the decisions that he's made. She was just the first of many bad ones.
Well, in the past, the Democratic Party hasn't even fielded candidates in some races. So in a state where you helped President Obama win re-election because he also won Florida, the two key branches of government, the legislative and executive branches, are kind of owned by majorities in the Republican Party. Governor, cabinet, legislature, both houses. Are you going to be competitive in all races in 2014?
Absolutely. We're not ceding any ground. We're going after every race.
So what is the agenda for the Florida Democratic Party? Because if the litmus test on your leadership is going to come less than 2 years after you start, can you be competitive in all races in 2014, and how?
We will be competitive in all races. We're not ceding any territory anywhere. We are going to recruit candidates early. We're actually already starting that process, and we are going to be looking for people who will be strong throughout Florida in hand-to-hand races up and down the ballot.
In the last general election, there was a lot of controversy about early voting and whether or not Florida needs election reform. The legislature is trying to deal with election reform. For the Florida Democratic Party, what does election reform look like?
Election reform looks like the antithesis of what Rick Scott put in place with his signature on the voter suppression law of last year. We need the 14 days of voting back. We need the Sunday vote before the general election date. We cannot have any more impediments to vote by mail than we've already seen a new suppression effort on that. It's up and down the legislation that's under consideration that the Republicans are putting forward, and it's not meaningful enough.
Being chair of the Democratic Party is a big contrast to how you spent recent years raising your children and raising money for great charities. What's the principal difference?
The principal difference is that I am working in a much more competitive environment, much more challenging environment. There are many people asking donors for the same things that I'm asking them for. But at the same time, the values are not very different than those I have lived my life by, which is I am in this to make sure that more people's lives and the conditions of other people's lives are bettered. And that's something that I've done at home with my own children, with my family members, and for the members of my community. Those are the things I've involved myself with. So in my view, it is an extension of what I've done, just on a much bigger level and a little more demanding circumstances.
A little more. Okay. Allison Tant, Chair of the Florida Democratic Party, thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time on Florida Newsmakers.